Okay everyone, today you are going to be making pin cushions, 3 stripes on the top, 3 stripes on the bottom, or else just a plain backing. I want to show you that you can get your rulers in this drawer. Maybe I'll have some, but you can also get your rulers, oh my goodness, way back here where all my patterns are. But on top of this filing cabinet, I have a ton of rulers you can use.
So today we're going to make our pincushion pattern, and we're going to make a rectangle, and we'll make our pattern 6 inches by 5 inches. So we're going to make our own pattern. So I'm going 6 inches wide here, and I'm going to connect my dots and just using a straight edge of the paper, 6 inches here, and now I'm going to go 5 inches down only. So I'm going to go down here, so I might have gone a little bit long on the 6, no problem. I'll show you what we're going to do. We go like this, 5 inches down, and we've got our rectangle pincushion pattern. So to make our pattern, we want to put down, we want to label it, we want to put pincushion. We also want to cut 2 of these, one for the front, one for the back. And we also want to put what's called a grain line on it. What the grain line is, it's a straight of grain line that's parallel to one of your edges. So we're going to just go like this. You find this on your patterns all the time. So notice my straight line here, like this and like this. We also need to put a couple of dots on this pattern, and we also have to put our 5/8 inch seam allowance on here as well. Okay, so on your pincushion pattern, along the 6 inch wide side, you're going to place 2 dots, 1.5 centimeters down from the edge. So I'm going to put one here, and then we'll put one about over here as well. And this is what you're going to use to leave open so that you'll be able to turn your pincushion and stuff it. So we've got 2 dots right here.
And this will actually be your start, and you'll sew here, pivot, turn, come all the way down, pivot, pivot, and stop there. And this again will be that opening so you could stuff it later.
Right. So when you sew this, it will be like this. You'll be going like this, won't you, down, and then pivot down at the 1.5 line, all the way down, back up, stop it. You gonna say that?
Yep.
Okay, you say it.
All right, so please make sure you label all parts of your pattern. This is the 6 inch side. To get the inches, that's the mark for inches, 5 inch side. And then don't forget to have your name on it, because I will be taking a look at this. So now you need to cut out your pattern, and over here is where you will find the paper scissors. All right, for the most basic of pin cushions, when you have same fabric on either side, all you're going to do is you're going to take a swath of fabric and fold it in half. And you will keep what's called a selvage edge together. So that's this edge along the side. You can see that it's white. I'll show you another one. Here's another selvage edge. You could tell it's a selvage edge because it's different color, plus it has pinholes in it. So if you are doing the most basic of pincushion, you'll take your pattern using economy of fabric, placing it close to the edge. Please note that your pattern is on the edge of your fabric as opposed to close to this fold. If you cut it here, you're going to end up with a massive hole in the middle of the fabric, and then pretty much garbage. Okay, here's a perfect example of somebody cutting smack dab in the middle, just such a waste of fabric.
For a basic pincushion, you'd use 2 pieces of fabric, put right sides together with the selvages even, and the first pins are going to go on your grain line. So one's going to go at one end, one at the other end, and then what you do is you measure from that grain line to the selvage to make sure that it's straight. So we're going to go like this, and we're at 4 3/4 inches here, and we're at 4 3/4 inches here. That's great. If it's not straight, then straighten it out to make sure that it's even so that your product will be on grain. Then we want to put the rest of our pins on to our pattern and put them inside the pattern piece so that you don't have to cut over any pins, and it will just make it much easier to get your pincushion cut out.
All right, when you're cutting one blade on the bottom of the table, always touching big long snips, taking your time. When you take your time with your cutting, your actual end product turns out a lot nicer. So again, big long snips, part of the blade touching the table.
Oh, they have to mark their dots.
All right, so you've removed the pins, and now we need to mark these dots. Okay, to mark those dots over on my table, you're gonna find this cappuccino box, and inside there are a variety of pieces of chalk. Grab one. You are going to use it to mark your dots. So what you do is you poke a pin in.
So let's put a pin right here. Lift up.
Yeah, pull the pattern back, lift it up. Great.
And do both sides. Don't forget to do both pieces.
So when you take your pattern off, that's what you should find. Well, I just showed you how to make that basic pin cushion, but what we're going to be doing is making the more complex one. You will actually only need one. So when you do fold your fabric, well, actually you won't need to when you're just cutting out one piece. You would just be cutting out an individual piece just like this. We also have strips of fabric cut, and that will be our top, just like in this pin cushion here. Step one.
So you take two pieces of fabric, good sides together with the long edges matching here, with your raw edges together, and you're going to pin a couple pins in here, and we're going to sew these two together. But we're not going to use a 5/8 inch seam. We're going to use only a 1/4 inch seam, which is the edge of the foot.
Okay, just like in our seam sample, hand wheel, pin in, press your foot down, hang on to those tails a couple of times, stitch forward, lock your stitch with the reverse. You can see now how the edge of the fabric is at the edge of the presser foot, and that is called a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Stopping machine, taking out needle, grab the pin, come to the edge, reverse. All right, so we have that done. I'm just gonna show it this way, there it is. Okay, then you open it up. Again, your fabric needs to go good sides together, raw edges even, and you're going to throw a couple of pins in and do the same 1/4 inch stitch length.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to add yet another piece. You're going to continue adding another piece until you have 6 inches, just like your pattern. And I did say last time 1/4 inch stitch length, but 1/4 inch seam allowance. Can you think of what we need to do to this? You need to go take it to the ironing board. Press all your seams to one side so that this fabric lays flat.
The darker side, right?
So here you go, we're ironing on such a small seam allowance, you just need to have your seams just pressed to one side. Great, and then move on to the next one, all in the same direction. So I just want to make sure that I did push all my seams to one side. I want to make sure that my seams are actually pressed totally open. So I'll go back on the good side, pulling a little bit so that my seams are as flat as they can be. And if I want, I press this button here. You hear that? Adds a little bit of steam. Great. All right, so now we have our pieces all sewn together. We didn't measure exactly the length, so we're gonna take our pattern, place it back on. And there's no selvage edge now. We'll just pin, just like we did before, and then cut the pattern out. Sometimes it does get distorted when you sew, so you iron, and then you re-pin your pattern, and we'll cut it out so it matches our bottom piece. Ready. Now we have our two pattern pieces, one with the stripes and one plain. You're gonna take good sides together. Notice there are dots. And we are going to start throwing a few pins in there to keep them together.
So now we want to see now.
All right, now we're gonna start sewing. There's our pins in perpendicular to that seam. Pin heads sticking out so they're easy to grab. Let's go sew. There are blue dots. We're gonna start on one of those blue dots, and now our seam allowance is gonna be 5/8. So the needle, using the hand wheel, goes into the blue dot, press your foot down, raw edge lined up at 5/8. And here we go. At the beginning and end, you always back stitch a couple. And then at this corner, take a look at how we have to, using our hand wheel, rotate once, needle position is in. I'm gonna rotate maybe a couple more times to get that perfect corner. Lift up the presser foot and turn. Now,
too
if
wide.
we've gone too much, we reverse back.
But this is not enough.
Not enough, so we have to put that presser foot back down, hand wheel a couple more times, or stitch with the foot. Good. Again.
Let's check it again.
One more time, needle in, pivot turn, pretty darn good.
One more stitch maybe.
One more stitch. This is exactly how it goes in the textiles world. And yes. Now pivot turn, raw edge is on 5/8. Stopping the machine, pulling the pin out, and away we go. Here comes another tricky corner that we have to navigate around. Foot off the foot pedal. A couple times. We'll see, we pivot turn.
Too much.
Put it back
Not enough
down.
yet? Not enough.
One more. Great. You think one more? Oh, I love it.
There we go. Perfect.
Yep, and away you go.
Yeah, we're getting
All
our
right,
last
we've
pivot.
done 3 out of 4 edges. This is our last pivot before we hit that second blue dot. Working it.
See if we're one more stitch.
One more stitch. Always hand wheel toward you. There, I see that blue dot. Reverse. And we've got the making of a great pin cushion. All right, we've cut all of our loose threads, and now we're cutting corners. We're doing what's called grading. Why do we do this?
We do this to reduce the bulk and to make it easier to turn our pincushion. So we've just clipped the corners diagonally, quite close to the stitching, but not to the stitching, but quite close. Then we take our scissors and we put one seam allowance back, keep one forward, and we're just going to basically cut our seam allowance in half, and that's called grading. That way, when you turn your pincushion inside out, you reduce the bulk. It's not, you don't have a bulky ridge, and it just lies flatter.
And when we do this to the corners, it actually gives us a more pointed edge. Notice that we graded 1, 2, 3 sides, but not the side with the blue dots on. Of course, we clipped the corners, but we kept those edges the same. We will need that extra fabric for when we hand sew. That's what it should look like. And by the way, these bins are for all your extra scraps to be cleared out every day. So ready, let's go for it. We're now opening it up and flipping it inside out. However you can do that. That's why we left quite a large opening so that we can put the fabric through the hole. All right, here we go. We're gonna go find what's called a point turner, and we're going to use the point turner to insert it to the corners to poke out those corners. Do that to each 4 of them. All right, we did it. Now we're gonna take this massive bag of stuffing and stuff it. And you have to stuff it pretty good, because if you don't, your pins actually end up coming out the other side, and it turns into this weapon that Anyhow, I want to also show you, just on this, look at your seam allowance. See how there's that good 5/8 seam allowance? That will help you when we hand sew, and soon enough I'm going to show you where to go to teach you how to hand sew.
All right, so you want to stuff it a bit more
Yeah.
to get it so that they can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can tell them to push it in the corner, make sure they push it right in the corners and do whatever. and
Good.
stuff.